Yeah, thanks for that introduction. You did a lot of work there. I was actually going to take a couple of notes. First of all, how are you, New York? Are you good? Yes, come on, let's go. Chaos, creativity, I don't even know what it was, change. The world is falling apart, all types of stuff happening. But I was actually, there we go, chaos, complexity, and change. I was taking some notes because what's interesting is that what I love about this organization is that they are working with the folks that are also at the cutting edge of engagement with consumers. And so when I see names like Braze, so I was just with Bill, if any of you guys know Bill Magnuson, on Sunday. I think he's one of the most brilliant minds in the space. So to see them up there, Attentive. So what many don't know, and I'll talk about, is I quit Mondelez because I was in China and I was watching WeChat grow. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to quit. I'm going to invest in messaging tech, and I'm going to get rich. I met a guy named Rich Dennis, who had the largest natural beauty business. But and he was like, Bonin, jump back into marketing. I was like, no. I'm way ahead of my slides, by the way. No, I can't do it. And so I said, okay, I will only if you let me do two things. One, you let me use this messaging platform. And two, actually, Christina's in here somewhere. There we go. Who was head of marketing for Sundial, and two, if we turn it into a tech company. But what was interesting is, for me, messaging was the way that we would engage with consumers moving forward, and to see Attentive. And so the funny thing is, I was actually, before I met Rich, I was fundraising, and I went to Bain Capital and was like, hey, they were like, yeah, we want to give you money, but also meet this guy. And I met Rich, and that somehow they distracted me. The one company they had that I did not invest in, I have 12 companies in the messaging space, was Attentive. And that's the one company that's done better than anything in my portfolio. But anyway, I just spoke at their summit, and I was very excited because the chance to talk to a company that's in the ethos that I believe is pretty transformational. So yes, so thank you so much, Zach, for the introduction. So to give you guys just a quick rundown, I spent 10 years on the agency side, and then I left the agency side because I thought clients were too dumb to buy good work, so I became a dumb client, and I went to PepsiCo. And was their first chief digital officer. What was interesting is now it's called digital transformation. At that time it was called, oh my God, what's Facebook? And so we had to figure out how to use this platform. And everybody told us you can't make money in these digital channels. And so what we did was we launched a thing called Democracy, which was the first ever user-generated beverage, which actually allowed users to choose everything from the color of the can to the marketing campaign. We actually sent silver bottles with no color in the liquid, and they got to choose the taste. And that became the largest LTO, limited time offering product that we ever had in the history of PepsiCo, because we actually allowed consumers to engage in the journey with us, and that's what transformed the way we were selling. Then we had to tackle Gatorade, and everybody told us, Gatorade has too much sugar, Gatorade has too much sugar, and we launched this thing called Mission Control, which was the first room inside of a marketing department that had screens that showed real-time conversation from consumers and allowed people to engage in real time. We had 5 people sitting around engaging with consumers in real time, and guess what we found out? It does have too much sugar. But the reason why it has too much sugar is because we found that the people who were complaining about it were 40 years old sitting on the couch drinking Gatorade. And Gatorade was made for 14-year-olds who wake up at 6 in the morning and do 2-a-days. Scientifically created to actually have, much better electrolytes and hydration. And so we decided to launch G2, which was half the sugar, half the calories, and became another billion-dollar business, really honestly based on what we were learning from this new digital channel. I then left there and I went over to Mondelez, which was Kraft Foods when I joined, but the largest snack food company in the world with some of the world's most amazing brands, Oreos, Wheaton, Stride, Trident, Triscuit. When I came over, my boss said, look, we want to have somebody who leads media come from the digital world because we believe the future of media is digital. I was like, great, I'm the digital guy. I loved it. Let's go. I'd never bought TV in my life, so now I have this big TV budget. And I go, Dina, do you have any advice? She goes, don't screw it up. I was like, thank you, Yoda. This is really very sage. When I got there, we were spending about 3% in digital, and my job was to basically move us to much more spending. It was very hard, very hard. The only reason why I got it done was because all of a sudden we had cost cutting. And so now I could go to Europe and go, I know you hate this thing called digital, but what if I give you this thing called $50 million back? They were like, yeah, let's do it, let's go. So we moved from 3% spending in digital to about 32% spending in digital. But we added $2 billion of top-line net revenue from just thinking differently about how we approached the world, which, to give you a sense, is half of what an Oreo business is. So in 4.5 years, we added almost half of what it took 100 years for Oreo to build. We also added $300 million to the bottom line. So today what I'm going to talk about, and I kind of jumped ahead, today what I'm going to talk about is this idea called hackonomy. How do you create value by breaking things? How do you break your organization? How do you break your organization's process? But most important, how do you break yourself? How do you create value by breaking things and reinvent anew? And how do we build that mindset, not just as marketers, but how we approach every single aspect of our business? Is not just do we live in a world of change, complexity, and chaos, but we have to realize that that is the new normal. And so more now than ever, we have to build a mindset that allows us to continue to create value within that sea of change. And what I think is interesting is that we always used to say, no, companies can't change, they're too big. We need a change agent, right? You've heard change. Some guy who can pull a rabbit out of the hat and transform my entire organization. Find me that one guy. But we don't realize that the companies that are really successful, everybody's a change agent. Think about the early days of Facebook. Even the janitor was like, my job's only 1% complete. The poster said 1% complete. Everybody in that organization believed they can change. Everybody in Google believed they can change. Everybody, you name said companies like Uber, so on and so forth. And I think what's most interesting about what happened during pandemic, as horrible as it was, we realized that everybody can change. Every single organization, big, small, were forced to change. And every employee actually changed. So we actually have the capacity. Now we have to make it a cultural we now need to make it a cultural imperative in order to be able to build that kind of muscle memory, and that's what I'm going to talk about. I already talked about Shea Moisture. I already told my joke about meeting rich and not getting rich. We did sell the business. We took it from 200 to 300 million. We sold it 12 months later for a little under $1 billion. The biggest thing I learned from here is something that we did, which was, we called it rotational marketing. We actually moved the marketing group from Long Island, 60 people, and we moved them into Vayner, so we could learn how to do digital marketing at scale. Then we moved them into Loeb, so we could learn how to do direct to consumer. Then we moved them into Refinery, so we could learn how to do beauty content at scale. And so this was really about how do you then build that muscle memory by actually taking people out of their element and dropping them in a place that they could have deep immersion. So I'll talk about a little bit of those lessons. I also had the chance to work with this guy who you guys might know. Hope the sound is right.
We have the great Bonin Bough.
If you guys didn't hear it, he said the great Bonin Bough. I don't know. I might play that again for you guys. I love this photo. People are like, Bonin, you were so tall. I'm like, dude, he's sitting, but he's not even sitting. He's in like a beach chair, like real low, like a deep-ass squat, and I'm barely. What was interesting about what we did with Cleveland Hustle was we set out to reinvent, to revitalize neighborhoods throughout Cleveland. But really what I learned is that the same mindset that we've used to help large organizations grow, small organizations can grow. And so we took 4 entrepreneurs, we invested behind their businesses. And the funny thing is that 80% of small businesses fail in the first 18 months. Now, I guess it's not funny, but 80% fail in the first 18 months because of 2 reasons. One, they don't have access to capital, so we tried to provide capital. But the biggest thing is they don't know how to grow. They don't understand how to unlock and change their mindset. So, for example, there was a bagel store, and this guy, he fell in love with making bagels. He slept in his car. He used a shared kitchen, would make bagels and would sell them, and eventually the bagels became in so high demand that he actually was selling more than he could make. So he decided to rent a friend's freezer, and then he figured out how to make frozen bagels taste almost as good as fresh. And so when we got to him, he said, I want to build bagel stores. We said, yes, 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 we want to build bagel stores too. But the frozen bagel market is a $180 million market that hasn't been reinvented in forever. There's only 2 players, Linder's and Thomas's. What if we do that? We got him on a plane. We introduced him to Boxed. We got him a national distribution deal. And he went from selling a truckload of bagels a month to a truckload of bagels a day. But changing the way that he saw the world, not just being a bagel store, but changing his mindset to actually being, a e-commerce business. And so kind of reinventing. And so these principles that I'm going to talk about work whether you're big or you're small. So I do have a portfolio. We invest in Tiny Organics, which is actually my wife's business, which I just saw someplace right here, which is actually a client of Tinuiti. So thank you guys for that. My wife was like, how come I got an email telling me that you're speaking here and you couldn't even tell me? I was like, oh, sorry. We also launched a new company in May called Group Black. We are now the largest Black-owned media business, trying to change the discrepancy between the $25 billion year over year that wants to be invested in Black-owned media and the less than $1 billion in inventory that's available. We're trying to change that complexion. I also wrote a book, which is called Text Me, 646-759-1837. And the book was meant to be the Freakonomics of the mobile generation. Originally, it was actually called Digilance, and it was going to be this big book. And it was going to be interviews with 120 people, from everybody from Dick Costello to Peter Guber, owner of the Dodgers and the Warriors, Facebook, and everybody in between, and looked at the unexpected impact that mobile's had on every single aspect of life, from dating to religion to parenting to memory and more. And when we first wrote the book, supposed to be called Digilance, after we were done, I realized that we hadn't changed publishing. All we did was write another 120-page book. We hadn't actually changed our mindset about how to approach publishing. And I ran back to the publisher. We had this idea of putting my phone number on the cover, so I ran back to the publisher and said, guess what? I want to put my phone number on the cover of the book, and we're going to transform publishing. They said, guess what? Get out. We didn't care about transforming publishing. We just wanted you to use your LinkedIn profile to sell more books. So I bought the book back, and best thing I've done, I bought the rights back, and to date, we've texted with 50,000 people. But by putting my phone number on the cover, what we did was we created an opportunity, whether you bought the book, whether you read the book, or whether you just saw the book, for us to actually connect with humans in a totally different way, and I'll share some of the learnings from that. But if you do text me right now, you will, not just right now, throughout the whole presentation, so you got another 28 minutes and 50 seconds, hashtag Tinuiti, and I'll send you a free copy of the book, but I do bill back, Zach, so don't laugh too much. Okay. Depends on how many. Okay, but our real journey begins in the 1950s. So if you were a marketer in the 1950s and I came into your office and said, look, I want you to use this thing called television. You go, look, I want you to use this thing called the door to get out. I get kicked out a lot, clearly, the publisher in this. This thing called radio works really well for me. I don't need your stinking television. But three bold brands, P&G, Unilever, and Kraft, decided to jump in because what they saw was consumer adoption began to eclipse where investment was. And it's in those deltas that you find opportunity to build competitive advantages. It's in that change, and that chaos, and that complexity. And I would argue, and again, clearly I believe in this, that we're seeing the same exact thing today. That the most amount of human attention is actually spent in messaging, but less than 1% of investment actually goes into messaging. So the boardrooms of most organizations, now that we're back and going to work, look something like this, where there's somebody in the front that says, you know what, I think we need a mobile strategy. And somebody looks up from their phone very distracted and said, I'm sorry, but did you say something? But what's great is that it's not just an example of boardrooms, but it's an example of society at large. We have become the most distracted society in human history. But what I love about humans is they'll never admit they're distracted. They'll say, no. Keep talking to me while I'm texting because I'm doing something that I call multitasking. Right? You've heard this. I'm a multitasker. What they are is they are a liar. There was a study that was done by the American Psychiatric Association. They took two groups. They asked one to use their mobile phone and multitask and perform a task. And they asked the second group to smoke marijuana and perform the same task. There was a 10-point drop in the IQ of those that use their mobile phones to multitask and perform a task, which was twice as much as those that smoke marijuana. So if you take anything away from me today, it's that you're better off being a pothead than pretending that you can multitask. But still, I share these glaring facts with leaders all around the world, and they still go, Bonin, we don't believe it. Is it at scale? I said, okay. So I did a little bit of research. Turns out there are 7 billion people on Earth, 5.1 billion own a cell phone and text, but only 4.2 billion own a text message. Own a toothbrush. Sorry. Which means two things. One, 1 billion people didn't get the text message on the importance of hygiene. But also, if we believe toothbrushes are at scale, then clearly this mobile thing has a shot. But then they go, okay, what about a younger generation? So we did some more research. It turns out a younger generation is doing a little bit better. 96% own a phone and text, 93% own a toothbrush, but only 90% use deodorant. 10% of an entire generation smells. People be very careful. As we come back to work, they could be sitting next to you. I'm just letting you know. You heard it here first. I love this. It says, honk if you love Jesus, text while driving if you want to meet him. Even our religious institutions understand the importance of texting, but still organizations are very slow to move. How many people in here have ever thought that their phone was vibrating and they reached in their pocket and they grabbed and they realized it wasn't? Raise your hand. All the rest of you who don't have your hands up are liars. It's not just you, it's actually a disease. It's called phantom vibration syndrome. And they say that people who have it have hallucinations that are vaguely similar to meth addicts. They have tactile hallucinations, vaguely similar. So there's some guy in a dark alley going, oh my God, please send me a text message, send me an emoji, please Venmo me, I'm dying over here. And while we're strung out on this thing called messaging, it's having huge impact on society at large. When I launched the book, we asked a very simple question as the first question, which was, what's the last thing you look at before you go to bed? Your partner or your cell phone? Of course, 75% said, my cell phone. One guy was so mad at me, he said, I hate you so much, now I have to make it a point to look at my partner before I go to bed instead of my cell phone. I said, you're welcome for the dating advice. Text back, yes, I'll auto bill. I don't know what to tell you. It's also changed parenting. What's the average age that you would, just people yell out a number, average age you would give a kid a cell phone? Yell out a number. 12. Okay, 12 was actually, it just came up first, so I felt bad stopping everybody else from taking decent guesses. 12, who said 12? See, it doesn't work. The joke doesn't work with you, because I was going to say we're going to give you a gift. Zach's going to tell you what it is, but it doesn't matter. That doesn't work with you. So, okay, anyway, 12 was the average. Some people were like 0. Good luck. Here you go. Use Google. Figure it out. But what was most interesting is that parents actually talk to us a lot about how it's changed hierarchy. So there used to be a time when, you're late to work and you're driving, you got to drop little Johnny off to school, and they're like, hey, why is the sky blue? You're like, because I said so. Or look, little Johnny, I don't care what Bonin says, do not smoke marijuana. Well, that's funny. Your best friend put photos of you doing bong hits in college on Insta, and you, for the gram, and you turned out okay. They talked about us about this compression of hierarchy. They also talked to us about the death of rebellion. So when I was growing up, I used to tell my mom, I'm going to little Johnny's house, and as long as I made it there in some form or fashion in time that made sense, they didn't know what I did in between. But now they literally have GPSs in every single pocket of every single kid. In fact, you guys know, number 2 of Facebook, she said, I can't wait until I can put a chip in my kid's head so I know where they are every minute of the day. I was like, you were a psycho. It also explains Facebook's situation. But that's, so there's this death of rebellion. Or when I went to college, I talked to my parents maybe once or twice a week if I was lucky, or unlucky, depends on the relationship with your parents. But now there's a continual communication between kid and parent. And if this was supposed to be the moment in time when you left your parental unit and you became the human you were going to be in life, does that transformation actually happen? Does that separation actually happen? What are the impact? The other thing that we found interesting is that it turns out that 80% of newborn babies have their photo up on Instagram within the very first hour of their birth. So that means the first thing you see when you come into this world is dad there with the iPhone or the Android, depends on his economic situation, saying, hey, can you smile? No, I can't smile. I'm being born. Can we do this later, damn it? So it's transformational from the beginning all the way to the end of life. The other thing that I found interesting is, though, 20% don't have their photo up. So I said, we got to be able to fix this somehow. So ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Nelfie, the newborn selfie. No kid left behind, people. We have the tools. We can make birth great again. We can do this. We've also turned pee time into me time, right? So we talk to people that say, you know what I hate most about my phone is I hate that I take it to the bathroom with me. I say, you know what I hate most is that you're telling me that you're taking it to the bathroom with you. I'm a perfect stranger, and I'm texting you from the stall. So people told us about stories how they'd lie to their friends at dinner so they can go check Instagram and Facebook. So here's a societal norm that we've turned into kind of this negative now. And then we actually have to lie to our friends about the thing we really want to do. So the point is that it's having societal impact in ways that we've never seen. So I give you, ladies and gentlemen, charging stations and stalls. Who's with me? It's a big idea. All this time being spent in stalls. Like I told you, I text with 50,000 people. What's interesting is that, and I had to learn how to change my mindset around how to actually engage with humans in a totally different way. When people text me, I don't know who it is, right? So it just comes in as a phone number. And people don't know what to say. They say things like, hey. So I write hey back. Or they say things like hi. I'm like, that's very profound. So here's somebody who wrote hi. So I write hi back. They go, took you long enough. First of all, I was traveling. Like, I don't even know who you are. Like, that seems a bit aggressive. But okay. For a number found in the textbook, I thought I'd get a response much sooner. LOL. Got to put LOL so you know I'm being jovial. I'm like, I wrote a whole book on texting. I think I got the LOL thing down, but thank you. Thank you for educating me on that one. I mean, it's not a textbook, it's a marketing book. You should get an autoresponder for this. I said, yeah, I did want to do an autoresponder because I didn't think it was genuine, but did you read the book? No. Off to a good start here. I was browsing the section where the book was and curiosity kicked in. I said, well, glad you were curious enough to text, but I must say it's a good book if you ever have a chance to read it. LOL. Boom, right back at you. I'll give it a look over next time I'm in Barnes, which I guess is an abbreviation of Barnes & Nobles, are fine. Barnes, I don't even know what it's about. I just thought it would be interesting to see what happens if I text a number. I said, well, it's about mobile culture, think Freakonomics, the mobile generation, looks at the untalked about and undiscussed impact mobiles have on every aspect of life, from dating to religion to memory and more. Ha ha ha. Speak about dating definitely ruined my last relationship. I was a texter, he was a caller, we were doomed from the start. LOL. Maybe they don't know what LOL means. Like, it seems a little deeper. I go, dude, did I? Now I'm really curious. Do tell me more. Actually, the book is interviews from 120 people. Decided to put my phone number on the cover so I could talk to people like you about how it's changing their life. Did you guys meet on a dating app? No. We were college sweethearts. I go, so how did the phone bring on what you seem to think was the inevitable? They write, I find that because I text so much, I have a hard time articulating myself on my feet. You can't Google the definition of a word mid-conversation to make sure you're using it correctly. You can't take too long to respond or people will perceive you as not so bright. You can't edit your words mid-conversation. My ex is a life coach, motivational speaker, soon-to-be author, Marine, and has the charisma of a politician. Communicating with him is a struggle for me. I even had panic attacks when I need to communicate anything serious to him. So now I'm like, how do we get right back to LOL? Because this got really much deeper than I was expecting. They go on, me, I'm just your average receptionist with dreams of being an entrepreneur, but no idea of how to materialize it or what to do. So I write back, wait, sounds like you're very perceptive and self-aware. So I'm sure you're a rock star. Maybe it was not you who had a hard time communicating. Maybe he was just so used to speaking that he didn't know how to listen. Come on, guys, this is really good stuff here, man. I'm not a professional. I literally just put my phone number on the card. Thank you, come on, give it up a little bit. Working hard out here, texting with some random strangers. No. So then I go, what's the idea that you want to launch? No response. So clearly not an entrepreneur, but my point is, it forced me to change the way that I look at how we build relationships. And I would argue that we're in a new world where you can actually build one-to-one relationships at scale in ways that we never thought possible. And I just think that it's really about a mindset change and how do you begin that journey to go onto that mindset change. And I would argue that there's not very many places to look. So when you look at the institutions, the top 100 business schools, less than 1% of the course descriptions even talk about mobile, emerging, or digital technology. So the institutions that we're supposed to be teaching us are not teaching us. And I would argue that the one place to look, and I know people are going to hate me for this, might actually be Facebook, but not really Facebook, but this idea of hacker. Not in a negative way, but in a positive way. Hackers wake up every single morning to break what exists today to reinvent anew. How do we build a mindset of breaking what exists today to reinvent anew? And I call it hackonomy, creating value by breaking things. Some of the best things have been created that way. The like button, created in 24 hours through a hackathon. Here's a company called Open Airplane. Anybody know these guys? So these guys are trying to be the Uber of airline travel. Now, I travel all the time, but I'm never like, oh, airplane, 5 minutes away. Okay, it's good. So not every idea will work. Just letting you know that. Here's a guy named Stellog who's actually hacking his own body to challenge our notion of what is possible. So in his arm, he's got a 3D printed ear. In that ear, he's got a Bluetooth microphone. So when he answers his phone, he literally answers it by talking to the ear that's implanted in his arm. Hello, can you hear me now? Get it? Here, ear? No, okay, that joke never lands. Anyway, okay, can you hear me now? And in his mouth, he's got Bluetooth speakers. So when somebody talks, he moves his mouth as if it was somebody else's voice coming out of his mouth. Here's a guy named Hugh Hare. Hugh Hare's story is really simple. So at 18 years old, he was considered the world's best mountain climber. He was climbing, he got caught in a blizzard, his best friend died, he lost both of his legs. A week after coming home, his brother, realizing how much he needed to climb again, took him out climbing, forced him to go climbing with his prosthetic limbs. As he was climbing with those prosthetic limbs, he actually chipped a toe. But he realized that he could actually climb better with his chipped toe than he could even with his original limbs. So he began to hack his limbs. At this time, he was a D student, but he decided that he's going to turn disability into ability. Now he has a doctorate at MIT, and he's considered the world's first bionic. He's created a pair of bionic limbs that operate just like human limbs do. He can run, he can jump. When he steps down, they push back, just like limbs. He believes he'll get these down to $3,000. Just by a change of mindset, he's created something that's probably going to transform prosthetics and disability as we know it. I saw him speak in London at an FT conference, and somebody asked a question. They said, hey, do you ever see a world where somebody would have prosthetic limbs over their real ones? He said, well, let me answer it this way. Imagine if your 17-year-old arthritic arm didn't operate, your 83-year-old arthritic arm didn't operate like your 17-year-old one did. And there were no complications, what choice would you make? And there was a hush over the crowd like this, because at that moment, people realized that we might actually become more computer than we actually are human. And this idea of the singularity where there's a rupture in the fabric of human evolution might actually come true. So I began to look at, okay, oh, I don't know why this is, sorry about that image, I don't know why that's there. I began to look at how do we hack the way that we engage with consumers. And so first, here's a little model that I put together. One is I think we have to rethink mobility. So I think first and foremost is we treat mobile as another channel, but the reality is actually utility. How do we create utility out of the mobile channels and approaches that we take? Real-time engagement, and this is not about being able to respond on Instagram or Facebook. This is how do you take an organization and actually get it to be able to respond in real time? How do you get it to change supply chain in real time? How do you get it to change product mix in real time? How do you get it to deliver differently in real time? How do you actually change the total organization to be a real-time organization? Monetizing media, how do we think differently about media? Instead of having to pay for media, can media actually pay us? Is there a way that we can actually make money from the content that we actually put out into the marketplace? And I'll show some examples. Aspirations versus allocation. It's one thing to aspire. I can aspire to do anything I want. It's another thing to allocate the time, resources, and effort that's necessary to actually get there. So are we actually allocating? And quick example is when I was at Mondelez, I wanted to become the #1 mobile market in the world. So I allocated 10% of our total global budget into mobile. Guess what? A year later, #1 mobile marketer in the world. TV versus video. I think as many of the new companies come online, thinking about TV versus video, I think that they're treated exactly the same. There's no difference because I also believe that culture versus cluster. The most important thing is not to think about buying or consumers as a cluster, 18 to 34-year-old moms, but actually the cultural nuances that tie those consumers together. How do we identify that? So I'll just show some quick examples of some of the muscle memory tactics that we used at Mondelez. So first, we needed to figure out how do we become more real time. And I'll show at the end how we did this with Oreo. But starting off, it was just, okay, first our communication. So we took Nilla Wafer. Nilla Wafers is considered an entrepreneurial brand, which means you got no money, good luck, be entrepreneurial. So we decided that we were just going to do Facebook on it. And we tried out 5 different campaigns. You guys are all familiar with this. The one that won was called Momisms. And so here's an example. The best families are like fudge, mostly sweet with lots of nuts. Here's good moms let you lick the beaters. Great moms turn them off first. It's true. If you want breakfast in bed, sleep in the kitchen. Hey, Jay-Z, thanks for stocking your villa with Nilla. Your kids are royal. My kids are royal pain. And what we began to do is we learned that if we put the face of our potential consumer on it, if we change, so we learned, again, how to adjust these in real time. And this little campaign allowed us to move with $620,000, $140 million business by 9.8%. I always had to round down because illegal, but screw legal, they're no longer here, so 9.8%. But it also gave us the ability to then say, okay, how do we take that to other mediums? And here's an example of what we did. Our next piece was with television. Here you go.
A little brought to you by credit is usually it. But tonight, we have a product too important. Because tonight, it's Wheat Thins. Wheat Thins, crunch is calling. And the call is coming from inside your mouth. Get out of there. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Steven, how important could Wheat Thins be? Yeah, I used to think that way too. Until I received this actual memo from Wheat Thins, detailing for my sponsorship purposes what the role of Wheat Thins is in our lives. And let me tell you something. You think you know Wheat Thins? You. You and the cracker you wrote in on. Okay? Now listen up.
So this goes on for 7 minutes. It's hilarious. You got to watch it. But this was the first time Viacom allowed people to do what they called clip and share at the time. And so we could actually clip 30 seconds, 15, 30 seconds, and share it on our social channels. So this was me trying to combine what we had just learned in terms of real-time muscle memory to television buying. And when we stepped back and we got the results, we had 5 times the reach on social that we would have had just on television alone. And so you can imagine, the interest was like, oh, okay, can we do this? So the whole point was, okay, how do we plan this from the beginning? And this piece of work came out of doing that.
If I had to describe my parents, my dad would be like this, smart one and everything. And then my papa would be, he's a funny one.
It's just me and him. we kind of take it as, all right, this is all we got. This is our team right here, and nothing's gonna break this team up.
American families have changed.
Sometimes we get looks just from being a mixed family.
And while they may look different, they're still as wholesome as ever. And who better to say this than the beloved brand American families grew up with?
Honey Maid. Everyday wholesome snacks for every wholesome family.
This campaign was the first time an American brand had so clearly stood up for all families.
This is wholesome.
And the nation took notice.
Honey Maid featuring both interracial and gay parents in an ad for graham crackers that's been viewed more than 5 million times.
Honey Maid's hashtag, this is wholesome, on fire.
But unfortunately, a lot of people didn't agree with our message. We were threatened with a boycott. We were called sinful.
Even the right-wing conservative group 1 Million Moms calling the ad a, quote, attempt to normalize sin.
But instead of backing down, we asked 2 artists to take every negative tweet, comment, and post, print them out, roll them up, and turn hate into love. And the best part was all the positive messages we received. Over 10 times as many. With over 270,000 shares on social media, this simple video earned over 250 million impressions from social and PR alone. And for the week it launched, it was the most shared commercial in the world. Perhaps a chart showing Google searches for Honey Maid over the last 10 years says it best. Honey Maid. In less than 1 month, it went from a cracker people love to a brand people love.
Just graham crackers, people. That's the crazy thing, that a graham cracker could have a point of view, but this was starting from start to finish. Yep, thank you for the 10-minute, got it. I'm gonna be 2 minutes over, just letting everybody know. She said 10 minutes, that says 8, so I'm counting on those extra 2. It was just graham crackers. But what was interesting is this was starting from all the way from the beginning, figuring out how do we do real time all the way through. But what people don't realize is that graham crackers grew 22%. Never in the history of graham crackers has that ever happened. But beginning to change the way that we saw the world and change our mindset, we're able to grow that business. Monetizing media, I talked a little bit about this. Here's the story about this game is very simple. There were 2 gum brands. I said, Bonin, we want to build games. I said, great, let me introduce you to people who build games for a living. I said, hush your mouth, Bonin. We don't need your advice. So they both spent $1 million. One got 10,000 downloads. The other one got 20,000 downloads. I was so pissed. I said, I'm going to find somebody who's going to trust me. We're going to crush it, and I'm going to shove it in your face because that's my management style. And that's what I did. So we found the Oreo brand manager was nice enough to work with me on this, and I found a company called Pickpock out of New Zealand. And I said 3 things. 1, do not desecrate the Oreo, because if you do, I will hunt you down and the sheep that you lay with. But 2, some people have been there, right? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So 2 is, if you can get the ritual of twist like a duck in, then great. But 3 is the most important. Can you make the game actually make money? And that's what we did. We literally sold ads inside of the game. We were 20 billion Oreos done, #1 app in 12 countries, focusing on actually changing our mindset. Can we actually make money? People played this game for 2 minutes and 12 seconds. I was blown away. The company was so nervous because a competitor tried to advertise. I said, if they're stupid enough to advertise in my ad, then let's get this money, people. Let's go. Who cares? And 12 million organic downloads. I still believe that this is probably the #1 branded game, but we had to change our mindset and say, just because we happen to have enough money to buy media, and my whole thing was, Candy Crush is smart enough, how do they have 1 billion users? I'm the largest candy company in the world. I don't have a platform that has 1 billion users, so we launched this. But then we decided, hey, could we take that even larger, and could we actually create something that was a piece of content so good that we could actually sell it to television? And that's what we did. So I'll tell you the story in a minute. Here you go.
We're going to land in that net going 120 miles an hour with some of my best friends in the world. It's incredible. I can't wait to do it.
He's jumping.
Luke Aikens will be
no parachute,
to make the most
no wingsuit on,
skydiving stunt ever performed
and he's going to drop into a 100 by 100 foot net. When they first came to me, they were like, Bonin, we want to drop a guy out. Would you do that? I said, yes. I went back to Mondelez and said, here's what we're going to do. They said, no, you're not going to do that. It took me 3.5 years to get this through. But my whole thing was, we're going to create something that we're actually going to sell. Watch, he has to flip over, right? Because he's landing in a net. So if he lands like this, he'll crush like a taco. So now once he hands the oxygen off, he's over. So now he's falling as fast as any human can from 25,000 feet. But look where he lands, look where he lands, look where he lands, look where he lands. Terminal velocity, the guy's jumping out of plane, no wingsuit, no parachute, nothing, dude. Look at this guy, he's sweating, he's not even jumping. That's how crazy it was. So the crazy thing about this is that he did 86 test jumps, and every single test jump, he would pull the chute before he ever did the whole stunt. I was gonna say he's levitating.
I mean, I'm almost levitating, it's incredible.
Right. His whole back is torn up because where he landed. So the one time, so every single one of the test jumps, he was dead center, 50-50, dead center. The one that matters, he was 30 feet off the center and 20 feet away from the worst death that any human could ever have. And me losing my job. I was like, Luke, don't screw this up for both of us, man. I need this gig, man. I'm really counting on this. This is actually the last thing I did. And I was like, Bonin out, I'm done. So here, we're gonna close. I'll talk really quickly actually about culture. So I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is that you have to orchestrate for the culture and the outcomes that you want from your people. So when I was at Pepsi, I launched Pep 10, which was the first kind of startup meet brand. Then I came over to Mondelez. I kind of screwed up on that one a little bit. I came over to Mondelez and we changed it for mobile futures. But the whole idea was, how do we create the mindset of moving fast and breaking things? So we forced our brand marketers to build with startups pilots within 90 days. We had them have guaranteed funding. And the most important thing was they all actually had to go and work for the startup. So we actually wanted to change their mindset by actually having them go and work for the startup. We did this in, I think, 9 different countries around the world. Every single person who came back after this said the same thing. They said, Bonin, should we go work for a startup? I said, no, do not do that. If our top marketers quit, I'll be fired. And again, like I told Luke, I need this gig. So, but what was interesting is we were able to accomplish kind of mindset shifts. And here's a great example. Earlier this year, Catherine Schieffer made her daily commute to Palo Alto, California offices of Waze, a startup that makes a social navigation app. From her seat at a long communal table next to Waze CEO Noam Boredom, she made phone calls, reviewed mock-ups of the app, and participated in marathon brainstorming sessions. Schieffer, however, isn't an employee of Waze. She is the senior associate and brand manager at Stride Gum, which is owned by Mondelez. Now, I know everybody knows Waze now. This was way before they were bought, which I probably should have told her to go work for them because she lost out on that $1 billion exit. But anyway, and we actually built their ad program, which most people don't know, but Catherine Schieffer. But what was more interesting was every single marketing plan that we looked at from the people who participated in this were transformational. All of them grew faster than their comparables in the marketing world. And so it was really about orchestrating our culture to really change minds. Okay, I'm gonna close. I got 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So I'm gonna talk about a little brand. You guys know Oreo, right? So here's the situation. What people don't realize is that Oreo, well, I did not want to work on the Oreo brand because I'm not 6 to 12. I don't own 6 to 12-year-olds. I think you can own them. I don't know. Somebody told me something like that. And it had never changed. Like, the business had been the same for 60 years. And of course, the first time I come in, they're like, Bonin, work on Oreo. I'm like, no! It had never changed because it was always Oreo, Twist, Lick, and Dunk, Mom and Kids, because nobody got fired. So we were so afraid of breaking our own mindset. But what happened was it stalled. So we weren't able to grab an older generation, and we had reached everybody who was 6 to 12. So literally the brand was in the verge of actually going, I wouldn't say extinct, but irrelevant. And so we had to begin from the very beginning. And we couldn't change the Twist, Lick, and Dunk TV ad at first because everybody was too scared. So I'll never forget the first meeting we had at Oreo, and they're showing another Twist, Lick, and Dunk ad. And on the side were these print ads, and one was all white that had a half of a cookie, and it looked like, or a quarter of a cookie, and it looked like it was swimming through milk, and it said Jaws, 1962 or whatever. And the other one next to it had a cookie off with a boot print, and it said the moon landing, 1962 or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I'm in London. Facebook announces timeline. So I call, this was our 100-year anniversary. So I called the agency, I said, guess what? We should do a timeline. We could fill in some of these and then we can have consumers fill in the rest. It's gonna be awesome. They said, bad idea. I was like, I hired you. I can also fire you. They said, better idea is for the next 100 days, it's our 100th anniversary, we're gonna show culture through the eyes of an Oreo. I was like, okay, that is a better idea. So the first one we did was this. So this launches on a Sunday. By Monday, the media had taken it, and Monday night, it was on, Oreos are gay, and it's on all the talk shows. I'm like, oh my God. Tuesday morning, I get a call, Bonin, what did you do to Oreo? By Wednesday, it was the #1 like post that Facebook had ever had and took on a life of its own. Friday, senior leadership was like, we knew it was going to be a hit the moment we saw it. I was like, well, that's not the phone call I got on Tuesday, but okay, maybe. So that's what we did. For the next 100 days, we created culture through the eyes of an Oreo. That led us then to building the muscle memory to prepare to respond in real time, and then we launched this. When you remember at the Super Bowl, the lights went out, we launched You Can Still Dunk in the Dark. I did my job. I was at the Super Bowl, I pulled the plug. So I got that right, and the team did the rest of this work. But then that led us to actually reinventing the entire brand Oreo globally with this piece of work.
Wonder if I gave an Oreo to the big bad wolf, how would the story go? Would he still go huff and puff, or would he bring those pigs cool stuff to decorate the deck he helped them build? Would they not get killed? Wonder if I gave an Oreo to a vampire in a creepy show. Would he not act so undead? Would he thirst for milk instead? I've just got this feeling that it might work out alright. 'Cause cream does wondrous things inside a chocolate sandwich dream. If I gave them to great white sharks, would they share them with baby seals? Would they call up a giant squid for a friendly meal? Wonder if I gave an Oreo. Wonder if I gave an Oreo. What if I gave an Oreo to you?
We now had a mnemonic. This smile you can still see on the packaging today, but it gave us a campaign that we could add all different types of music around the globe, first ever unified global campaign, but it allowed us to kind of change the way that we approach the Oreo business to the point where we launched this at South by 1 year.
South by Southwest Interactive in Austin, Texas. We invited festival goers to the Trending Vending Lounge to participate in an experiment. What would happen if your Oreo cookie joined the social network? Our prototype vending machines take what's trending on Twitter and turns those trends into custom Oreos. Using unique transparent touchscreens, users scroll through a list of trending topics, each related to a particular flavor combination and pattern. Advanced algorithms translate the tweets into custom cookies. In all, there are about 10,000 possible combinations. Users can also mash up two trends to further customize their experience. The resulting cookie combines elements of the two original trends. Once the user hits Make Cookie, the real magic happens. Using some repurposed 3D printing technology and a pneumatic pump system, we've enabled festival attendees to watch as their custom cookie is robotically printed and assembled. The final cookie is dropped into a cup, vended, and is now ready to enjoy.
I love how she's so surprised. It's like, did you really think we were going to show up with like a bad tasting cookie? Like, really? And who's this glass hole, right? Google Glass. So people wait in line for 2.5 hours to get one cookie. I would take people behind the machine. They were like, oh my God, it's like Willy Wonka. Turns out it's really difficult to turn bits actually into atoms. We had to create our own hyper snacking markup language. But what happened here, which was interesting, was the head of supply chain was here. He was like, I can't believe that people will wait online for 2.5 hours. We have to do this at scale. I said, no, because it meant I had to take on e-commerce. And I'm going to show one last video. These guys are going to kill me. I'm actually kind of on time, judging by my watch. So we launched the first ever personalized Oreo. Here, I'll play the video. So we were all in a room. We had about 2 months where we were going to miss holiday season. I did not want to miss holiday season. There's like 70 of us in a room, right? This was the first ever personalized. And you saw you could color all different photos. You could stretch it. You could move it. So millions of different things were created. And we have 2 months. We're in the room, and it's the head of supply chain. And everybody was saying why we can't do it. We're never going to da-da-da. And he slams his hand on the table. He said, anybody who doesn't think we can do it, leave now. Everybody left. Except for like 7. One was like the head of procurement for sugar. So it wasn't the A team that was left in the room. I'm just letting you guys know that. But we took this tiny little ragtag team and we created the first ever, we actually created a plant in Milwaukee. We created that entire user experience. We created entirely new overwraps with HP that could run on our full machines after we moved out of the small plant. We created the shipping, we created the shipper, the shipping technology. And what I love was people were able to write everything on it, right? And so beyond just customizing this, people send things like, will you marry me? Or it's a boy. I'm like, don't ship that to the wrong person. What do you mean it's a boy? I didn't even know we were trying. And everybody said it was gonna fail. And they were right, it was a failure, dude. Like in New York, we got the CAC wrong, the shipping wrong. By the time in the US, by the time it got to South America though, it began to take on momentum. By the time it got to China, it was a rocket ship. It was the #1 product from any CPG, major CPG brand on Alibaba, the Christmas that we launched this there. But I bring this up because here we went from a cookie that hadn't changed in 60 years to having to create new value by breaking things, breaking the model, breaking our approach, and something that started from something as tiny as a Facebook post ended up driving personalization, which then drove our new e-commerce strategy. And e-commerce was set to represent 50% of the total growth of the largest snack food company in the world. And so from a tiny little Facebook post came the future of growth for one of the largest organizations in the world, because we changed our mindset and we began to break how we see the world. And so I leave you with that, and I get to wrap up. So anyway, look, here's the bottom line. You can text me, but the best way to predict the future, according to Alan Kay, is to invent it. But according to Bonin Bough, the best way is to hack it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Enjoy.